Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Game Studios. I'm Craig, and today we're going to go over a Tyranid tournament winning list that was done here in the US not too long ago. This is probably the biggest event Tyranids have won with their new codex, so it's going to be big to dive in, see what the list was, see just how it was played, how we think it was played, and all of that good stuff. So if that sounds good, do like and subscribe to stay up to date on all of our content here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios. And if you want to help support us just a little bit more, channel members, thank you so much. You really help keep this channel going. I know I have not put out any videos kind of this style in a little bit. I have been sick the past week pretty much, maybe even more than a week, ever since we did that live stream. I was really sick the next day, so it's good to be back doing some. At least you had a battle report to watch. Now, with out of the way, let's dive into today's video. So like I said, this was probably the biggest event that Tyranids have won with their new 10th edition codex. This was the event in the US here, the Crucible Major. There were 72 players, seven rounds of 40k, so I'm assuming that is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday event. Probably 3, 2, and 2, something like that. This list was run by John Lennon. If you guys don't know John Lennon, he is from the Art of War 40k team. YouTube page, article, they've got everything. They have probably what people consider to be, they're the competitive driven YouTube channels out there. They really do focus on that top level competitive stuff. Here at our channel, I like to call it as a casually competitive or competitively casual, where we do want to provide great level of competitive play, but we are not number crunching and min-maxing to our fullest potential, at least on the channel regularly. In tournaments I go to, sometimes I will do that, but for the content here, we are not to that peak. But someone's got to do it, and they do a great job at it. So check them out on YouTube if you want to see it. I believe that they cover this list in a very general terms, but you have to be like a member of their page to see his in-depth breakdown of his list. One of the things you get from there. But I'll cover it here and see what my thoughts on how he used it. Again, these are my thoughts. He probably has his own way of saying how he played it because he played it. Let's get into the list here. It's a very simple list. He basically uses the best of the best there and uses it to great advantage. So, in the characters, we got Death Leaper. He's awesome for 70 points. I think he's almost an auto-include into every list just because of his points value. He doesn't need to be in some list. I'm honestly working on a list right now that doesn't include him just because of points, but he's good there. Hive Tyrant, Lash Whip, Bone Sword, Venom Cannon with Synaptic Control. That is the -1 damage. Really, I like the Hive Tyrant. I think he's too expensive for most lists, but Synaptic Nexus making him -1 damage, and they have such great battle tactic strats. This is probably one of the detachments that a Hive Tyrant can and should belong in. And finally, a Neuro Tyrant with Power of the Hive Mind. Neuro Tyrants are awesome. They synergize really well, especially with what he's bringing here. And they have that enhancement that makes his Flamer just that much better. So good to see that in there. 2x10 Gargoyles, again, just a staple in a lot of competitive Tyranid lists. Can't go wrong with those. Into the others, he's got 3 Exocrines because they're that good. 3 Neurolictors because they carry the Tyranids to a whole nother level. 2 Maliceptors, great units. A Biovore, 2 individual Pyrovores, a unit of 6 Zoanthropes, and a unit of 3 Zoanthropes. So really, this is playing all on the shooting aspect of Synaptic Nexus. Yes, you could argue Nexus could be played in a melee capacity, but really with the meta of 10th edition 40k, and with the units that are priced the way they are and how things work for the Tyranid Codex right now, it's a shooty army, especially in Synaptic Nexus. So I'll get into a little of how I think this list plays. It's going to be a little difficult without having everything in front of me. Obviously, I guess I could have probably put all of this in front of me to show you. I have all of these models, except for I don't have 3 Neurolictors yet. Anyway, so the characters and the Neurolictors, they're really playing that mid board. I'm assuming he's deployed each Neurolictor so that they are about 12 inches away from each center objective, just outside of his deployment zone using that infiltrate, but they're not going to be probably sitting on the early objectives unless he knows his opponent has no threat to get to them within a turn or two. They're just going to basically be there to battle shock and provide those buffs while using their lone op keyword. Death Leaper's probably going to do similar, maybe just forward deploy a little bit using his lone op keyword, but you're not going to be throwing him at the opponent turn one, just playing pretty cagey with him, using that leadership debuff and his pretty good melee profile when you need it right. The Tyrant, he is also doing, the Tyrant and the Neurotyrant. Neurotyrant is going to be sitting back for a lot of it until he's used his Shadow in the Warp. Then he can kind of go forward and flame stuff at free will because he's done his thing. He's still a good monster, but if he dies, it's not the end of the world. And the Hive Tyrant will also be sitting back, supporting bubbles of units using those battle tactic strats for free, and still being a melee threat because this is a really shooty army, so he needs at least one melee threat to hang around and fight off any opposing melee that comes at him. Gargoyles, he's probably doing a combination of deep striking his gargoyles and starting on the table. I could see him doing what I do, is probably putting one on the table and deep striking another one. Maybe he deep strikes both of them, depending on how much reserve he wants to play with. The gargoyles are just so good. I mean, you deep strike one of those, and then they can shoot, and they can be 3 inches for your opponent. Yes, you can't charge, but you can use that movement manipulation to just take objectives, take primary from your opponent, give you early primary, deny it. Each one of those guys is OC2, and a lot of times on those center, front, middle, those no man land objectives on the early turns, your opponent's only going to have maybe 4, 5, 6 OC on those. So if you can just tag 3 gargoyles, you can contest, take control of those objectives, and really deny your opponent's early primary game. He's going to be using, I'm assuming, with just how much shooting he has got in here, he's probably going to use significant use of strategic reserves. I'm assuming he's got at least an Exocrine, he's got both Pyrovores, and he's probably got the big block 6 Zoanthropes, and maybe a Maleceptor, so in strategic reserve, waiting to come on turn 2 or 3 on a flank that suits him. Maybe he doesn't do it every time, depending on the matchup, but imagine that blob of an Exocrine, 6 Zoanthropes, a Pyrovore, and maybe a Maleceptor all walking on the table on the side, lining up targets on 1 or 2 units and just blasting them off the table. Remember, Irresistible Will is you pick an enemy and you pick one of your Synapse units, and everything within 6 inches of that Synapse unit gets to reroll 1s to hit and wound against that target. So that big blob is basically just guaranteeing, okay, this target is dead. And then you have the other units to shoot otherwise. The Maleceptors do pair really well into this because you're going to be putting out a lot of battle shocks. Each of the Neurolictors is ideally battle shocking a unit every command phase. Death Leaper is going to get some benefits to battle shocking. And you have the Shadow in the Warp that'll battle shock. Maleceptors give -1 to wound to your opponents if they're battle shocked. The Neurolictors also do that if battle shocked. -1 to hit. The Neurolictors give you +1 to wound if you're battle shocked. And they both give -1 to wound. Or hit. -1 to hit. So it really does play in the battle shock. You also have the Strat, Smothering Shadow for mortals on key units when they take battle shocks. So it's really just it's not, they contest the center objectives by battle shocking your opponent and having gargoyles to sit on it and then shooting them. It doesn't really play the center like some other armies where they hold all the objectives by sitting a bunch of bodies on there and fighting for them. This is just going off of, I'm going to battle shock you off the objective, so your OC doesn't matter, you're not going to get primary, I'm going to get all the primary, and that's the way the game goes. It's a very powerful list. There's not much more else to say about the list. I do think it's just it's a powerful shooting gun line. I mean, this is a shooty edition. You have one of the most points efficient shooting platforms in the game with the Exocrines. You've got one of the more durable but still good shooting platforms with the Maliceptors, and you've got one of the most annoying battle shocking support units in Neurolictor in the game, and you're just pretty much maxing those out. Oh, and on top of that, don't forget the Biovore is popping down spore mines to slow your opponent or to score you easy secondaries. It really is just a powerful list. The Pyrovore's in there, again, to score secondaries, turn off cover because cover is very prevalent, and when you're shooting this many guns, it's nice to have something Norse cover. So that's all I have to say. Again, try and check out Art of War if you're, I think members again have to see his true breakdown. They might do some breakdown of it, but the list is as straightforward as that. As a Tyranid player, I understand what this list is going. It is powerful, but it is as straightforward as I shoot you, I can battle shock you off the center objectives. If you're battle shocked, I shoot you better, and then I have this big reserve coming on and I shoot that even more. And you really just play the primary game and score as many secondaries as possible, which Tyranids can do a great job of. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, members, and we'll see you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.